Hi everyone, it's Kristie here from KP Creatives with another video for Two Scrapbook Friends. Today we are going to be having some fun creating a few different backgrounds using the Tim Holtz alcohol inks. And the bundle that I'm going to be using today is the Rodeo bundle, which includes 3 different alcohol inks: Crimson, Aquamarine, and Sepia. We're going to also be using a couple different things to blend our alcohol ink, and then we've got some tools and coordinating supplies that are going to really make these alcohol ink background statement pieces on your cards. So I'm going to go through each of these as we work through our project, and I will pop it up again at the end of the video so you can see all the supplies we're working with. We've got this great stamp set from Tailored Expressions. I love these simple strips. This is the friendship one. These are red rubber stamps. You stamp this entire piece out onto your MISTI, and it comes with a coordinating die set. You can get banner dies, just straight rectangles, or other different ones. I have the banner die one, so you'll see that in the sentiments. But really great to use because you pop this in your MISTI, stamp them all out, and then you can heat emboss, just leave them inked, whatever you want. So lots of all-purpose sentiments here for some great cards for friends. I'm making several cards for International Women's Day, which is coming up on March 8th. So I thought it would be fun to send some greetings to friends using that great stamp set. I've also got some coordinating cardstock, black and like a beigey gray. And that's what I have also used for the sentiments, this beigey gray, using a black VersaFine ink with just clear embossing powder over top, so you get a little bit of shine on those sentiments. So these will be some of the layering pieces for our cards. And then I have black with white and silver heat embossing. So one of the stars of the show today is Yupo paper. So Yupo paper is a synthetic paper. So if you haven't used it before and it's new to you, I would recommend trying the Yupo white cardstock. It comes in packages of 10 pieces of 5x7 sheets. I mostly make cards, so I like to cut the 5x7 sheets in half. So I get, 2 little canvases out of 1 sheet of paper that measure 3.5 inches across by 5 inches. So that's what we'll be working with for our canvases today. You can also get Yupo paper that is translucent, which is really fun to use. I like that one as well. And you can get black. So many different options. I think there's also a sparkle one now, which I have not tried yet. So I'll have to put that on my list. But this is a really cool substrate to use. And that's how I've actually done all my swatches for alcohol inks, because it is the type of paper I use the most. So just quickly before we get these mats out of the way, I did cut these down so that they just give a nice little margin around the piece of Yupo paper. So again, the Yupo paper, 3.5 by 5. The matting and the coordinating cardstock is 3 5/8 by 5 1/8 inches. Just so you could take whatever measurement you like, depending on the border that you like. But I thought that was nice with just a little border around it. So let's get these sentiments and card background panels out of the way, and let's talk a little bit more about alcohol inks. So we're going to use 2 things to get our alcohol inks blending and moving on our paper. We're going to use the alcohol blending solution by Tim Holtz and Ranger. So I'm going to get that open. And then I've also got in these bottles, you can get these bottles from Two Scrapbook Friends. They come in a 3-pack from Lavinia, and they are really great because they have a good fine tip nozzle. I have filled this bottle with isopropyl alcohol. You can get that from your pharmacy. If you're using alcohol inks, try to get 90% or higher. I think this one is 99%. So it really works well. And the fine tip is really handy when you're working with alcohol inks. So you'll see that in action in a couple of minutes. So the 3 colors we're going to be working with, and if you're looking at these thinking, not so sure how these 3 colors are going to blend together, I'm right there with you. These are sold in a bundle. They are called the Rodeo bundle. So you get Crimson, that gorgeous deep red. You get Aquamarine, so a brighter blue. And then you have Sepia. Now we are going to blend the heck out of these 3 colors on our Yupo paper, and you are going to see some of the great undertones that we're going to see and pull out once we start moving these inks together. So we are not going to end up with something that looks like this, I promise you. It will be much more interesting. The last thing we are going to use on our alcohol ink backgrounds are pieces of foil. So I've got some foil scraps. Usually when we're foiling, that you have some scraps left over from your foil sheets. I just got a little stockpile of silver and gold. These are from the Gina K and Thermoweb foil. So this is not hot foil. I am using the type of foils you would put in your mink machine or your laminator. So just keep a little stockpile of these, cut them up, and you are going to see how we really punch up these alcohol ink backgrounds by using those little bits of foil. All right, so let's get started. I like to put a piece of paper towel down on my glass media mat before I start working with alcohol inks. It just helps me manage the mess a little better. Try not to wear, your best clothes, because we are going to be using the alcohol ink blower tool from Ranger. And, sometimes if we're blowing, there can be some spatter sometimes. So when you're working with these inks, you want to make sure you're in a well-vented area. Wear a mask if you'd like, have a fan on close to you. And that's really going to help your whole experience in working with these inks. So let's get started. I've got my isopropyl alcohol in this little bottle. I am going to squirt some down in the middle-ish of this little canvas. And I wasn't pushing too hard there. So there's just kind of a blob of the isopropyl alcohol in the middle of this piece of Yupo paper. I'm putting a few drops of the crimson. Gonna get a couple drops of aquamarine, and then a couple drops of sepia. And this doesn't look too thrilling, right? Nothing too exciting. Actually, quick trick while we're here. I don't know if you saw, but the aquamarine kind of blobbed over here, and I don't want that. So I'm actually just going to squirt some of the isopropyl alcohol on it and wipe it off. And it mostly takes it all away. So now, that's just a little quick trick if you get splatters over your little canvas. So now we've got things sort of moving around, and I'm going to bring in the blower tool and just get these inks working together. So I'm not being too forceful with the blower tool, but I'm just pushing these inks around so that I can start to get them mixing and see some of the great undertones within these colors. So look at that gorgeous green that we are getting. And then here we're getting some purple. So cool. So when you are working with alcohol inks, if you've never tried them before, what you see on the bottle is not necessarily what you get when you play. And I think that is really fun and really challenges our creativity in the most awesome way for some of us who, you never know what you're going to get. And it's just so interesting to play and move things around on this Yupo paper and see what you get, because it's not something that maybe we're used to playing around with. And I think that is really cool and fun to be able to work with. So I am just, going around here. I'm blowing things out a little bit. I'm going to add some isopropyl where I want to get some colors moving around. I'm not fussy when things aren't looking totally fantastic, because the other cool thing is you can keep working with these inks. You can keep them moving around. You can add new colors, you can add blending solution, and you can really have some fun with it. So I'm actually going to add some of the aquamarine in here to try and get some of that purple color coming back here. So let's see if we can get that moving. I'm gonna add a little bit of the blending solution get things moving around a little more here. There we go. So this is one of those things, if you want to have some creative playtime, you don't necessarily have an idea of what you want to make, or, you kind of are feeling like you don't have your crafty mojo, sit down with a couple of these alcohol inks and just play around. I'm adding some isopropyl to the edges because I want to try and get some wispy edges happening. And just getting some interest to these colors. Now I'm going to get a little bit more forceful with the blower tool, get things moving around a little bit more, create some variation in the middle. I'm getting the alcohol ink pooling in a couple of places, and for this particular project, I actually want that in a few places. I want it built up and I want it to stay a little sticky, because that is where our foil is going to come into play. So let's get this last part moving a little bit more. This middle is looking awesome with that deep purple color coming in. I get a little more isopropyl on this side. I'm just going to turn my little canvas here a little bit. So you can see it looks like it's just going to stay like a dark black, but we are going to play around with this and really get some cool variations in color here. Sometimes your nozzle will tap your Yupo paper, just tap it off on the paper towel. So I'm going to put a little bit of the crimson down in this area, add some blending solution. Let's see if we can get some more colors happening through this side. So again, you really can just play until you are happy with what you have. So I'm just going for a completely abstract background here. And I do want some of this ink in the middle to lift a little bit. So I'm going to go in with the isopropyl. I'm going to put a pretty generous amount, and that's going to break up the ink a little bit more. So you can see we're getting some really nice definition. I'm going to go in pretty heavy-handed with the blower. Just break up those pieces. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay, this is getting great. So I'm just going to go in again here with the isopropyl. We're going to break that up, get some of that sepia tone coming through. You can see it builds up the yellows. So again, you never would have thought, at least I wouldn't have thought, in looking at this background, that we started with crimson, aquamarine, and sepia. It's like you can just get such cool variations in the colors and picking up the tones that make up these colors when you use these different blending solutions in the isopropyl on your alcohol inks. Okay, so this, this might look to you like a hot mess, and that's okay. I like the look of it. I think it's pretty abstract, and I'm just going to go pretty heavy-handed here with the blower tool to set the inks where they are and get this to start to dry a little. So I'm going to hold it up a little bit closer to the camera so you can see we've got some areas that are pooling, right? You can see that those areas are still wet. We're going to let them get a little tacky. That's exactly the type of texture that you want them to be before we come in with our foiling pieces. So I'm just going to set this aside. I'm going to bring in another piece. Actually, I'll bring in new piece of paper towel here. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to start with some isopropyl in the middle. Going to come in with crimson, aquamarine, and sepia. And we're going to get to blending. So you can see how quickly these can come together as backgrounds. It is so much fun to work with. And if you are not totally sold on the colors that you get, that doesn't mean you can't keep this Yupo paper background and die cut out of it. Yupo paper die cut's fantastic. So if that's something that you want to do with these little canvases that you create, that's totally cool. You can just leave them in your stash. And wouldn't they be great as word shadow dies? I think that would be pretty awesome. So look at that amazing green. We did not use any green alcohol inks. We used red, blue, and brown. And look at that fabulous green color we are getting. I'm going to add some more isopropyl, get things moving around here and lighten it up a little. And this is another reason why I like to use the paper towel, right? Because you can see that as we're blowing the ink around, some of the excess just gets picked up with that paper towel right away. So it's not sitting on top of the paper, which I think is really handy for me and how these put together. So I really like to have that available. So I am going to set this one aside. We're going to come back to it and finish it off here. But I'm actually going to set it aside because I'm keeping an eye on that other background we were working with. And it's pretty tacky at the moment. So we're going to finish this off with foil. So you can see still a little tacky in some of those areas. I'm going to bring in some of my gold foil strips. Now, I will tell you, sometimes this works perfectly. Sometimes it does not. So we're going to see what happens live here on this video. So I've stuck that piece of foil down. So I've got the pretty side up, and I'm just going to keep placing it on those tacky parts of this background and lifting it up. So can you see how the foil sticks in those tacky parts? I'm just going to lift this up so you can see it. So isn't that so cool? I never knew that you could use foil to do this. And in playing around with doing a few of these, I was able to see that if you cut the foil in little strips and then just press with your fingers and lift off, you get some awesome, really cool texture and interest in these backgrounds. And it is a great way to use any of your foil scraps. Okay, so I've just got that, just dabbed that piece of, those two little scraps of foil around our little canvas. And isn't that amazing? Little pieces of art that you can create with these alcohol inks, and just a really fun card background that you can then do anything you want with. So we're going to leave that off to the side, let it fully dry. I'm going to bring back our second little canvas that we're working on. Same 3 inks, and I'm going to bring these side by side in a second, but it's just unbelievable how different they are. I'm going to add in some more isopropyl around here, and we're really going to get things moving. Get some of that red coming throughout this panel. Break up some of that green. Get some of that sepia flowing through. Really gonna get some movement here. And again, where the ink is building up, that you want those areas because you want to be able to get some of that foil into it to show through as we work on adding that. I have found gold and silver work great for the foil, but of course you could use any foil that you have. You could use Deco Foil has a really nice opal foil, which would look great. on little panels like this. So this one, really cool. I can see that some of that tackiness is already starting to set up. So it's really not a science. You just kind of have to look at the project and see if it looks tacky. Now, when I was playing around, I did find, as I mentioned when we were putting the foil on the other panel, sometimes I would put the foil on and it wouldn't catch anything. If that happened, I would just add a little bit more ink or add some of the blending solution and try it again. And it's amazing how much you can throw on this paper and it will not warp. It will, like, look, we've added so much liquid to this. It is completely flat. So it's just amazing to be able to play around with something new like this. I think they kind of, to me, look like maps. And then when you add the foil, it sort of looks like, you know, you're adding rivers in or something. I don't know. It's just very cool to me. So I'm going to use silver this time so you can see what that looks like. So I can see we've got a tacky section here. So I'm just taking that little strip of silver foil. Oh, great. Getting some of that nicely picked up there. Since we're still in this green section, I'm going to reuse that piece of foil. See if we can get some more foil picked up. And since some of the alcohol ink was picked up on the back of the foil, I'm going to actually throw that piece away and we're going to move on to the different color section. So again, you want the pretty side of your foil facing up. You're going to press down into those tacky areas and then lift up. And look at that lovely ribbon of silver that we're getting. So cool. I first learned this watching Jessica Frost Ballas in her YouTube channel. She did this with alcohol inks and I thought it was the most amazing thing. And I absolutely had to get in my craft room and start playing around and seeing what I could do with adding the foil to these little canvases. So there we go. So again, same 3 colors. Unbelievable. So let's do a couple more, just really, I'm just going to show you how quickly, again, these can come together. So we're going to do the same drill. Crimson, aquamarine, sepia, and we're going to start blending. Blend, blend, blend. And you can also move the Yupo paper, so physically pick up your little panel, move it around. Gonna let some of that excess drip off onto the paper towel. You don't need a lot, like you saw, I was only using a few drops of each of these colors, and you still get a ton of movement and variation. So alcohol inks are a good investment because they do last a long time. So let's get some more isopropyl, get some movement in the middle here, push into that sepia. And some movement around that crimson. Sometimes when I'm doing these, I like to leave some white space on the panel. Other times I'll fill the whole thing. Really, it's one of those things where you kind of just work with it until it's in a spot that you like. And that could be different depending on your mood, depending on what else you're working on, or, you know, what you're creating your panels for. So really, sky is the limit here, guys. And it is so much fun to just play and create with these. So I'm actually going to leave that one. I think that is going to create some pretty cool effects. So we're just going to leave that and set it aside. And we've got one more panel here. And I just need a new piece of paper towel. This time I'm going to start with blending solution so you can see what that looks like. It's not too different, but just so you can see the difference of starting with that versus the Yupo paper, or sorry, not the Yupo paper, the isopropyl alcohol. Really quick to get to some of those undertones in these alcohol inks, which is like the best part of playing with them. So cool. Okay, I'm going to add some isopropyl and get things moving around the edges here. I really love when you get the alcohol inks, again, when you buy them in those trios, they really do create great canvases. So again, you might think when you see the trio available, not really sure if that's my color jam, but give it a try. Give it a try, give it a whirl and see. I think you will be amazed in some of the things that you're able to create. So I've just got this section here that I'm not super thrilled with. So let's move that around a little more. There we go. Just gonna get the isopropyl on this edge, soften that up, and then we will stop with this one. Okay, so we've got the one that we were just working on. That's got some tacky spots. So I'm going to bring in some of the gold foil for this one. Press down on those tacky bits and see if we can get some of that gold foil to stick. Again, sometimes you're going to get more sticking than others. Sometimes you'll get none and you want to go in and add some more ink or add some more of the isopropyl and get the ink to pool up a little bit more. But as long as it starts to get some of that, you know, the ribbons or, you know, veins of gold and silver, I can see this section here is still a little bit too wet. So I'm not going to go in for the foil on that section yet. Let's bring back that panel we were just working on. And it's still a little wet too. So let's get things starting to clean up here. And we'll be ready to put our final cards together. So that created 4 different alcohol ink panels for our cards. We already have our panels of coordinating cardstock cut, and we already have our sentiments done from the great set from Tailored Expressions with those simple strips. So we'll get all of these other supplies closed up so that we don't have any accidents in aisle 3 of the craft room. I can see some of the areas on this one are set up now, so let's start to try and get some foil sticking on this panel. And I'm going in with the silver, again, pretty side up, push down and pull. This bottom section looks like it might be a little wet still. Let's try this little area. Oh, there we go. That was a really nice bunch of foil there. So maybe it is okay here. Let's try. Yeah, see that section? So I don't know if you saw that. I just pushed down here and lifted up, and all I did was smush the alcohol ink down. So it was still a little bit too wet. So you can see that it's on the back of my foil here. So I'm going to get rid of that piece of foil. And we will just let these dry a little bit more. Let's see. Is this section tacky again? Maybe a little. Let's try again with the gold here. Yeah, picking up a little bit there. So what a great way to use your little bits of foil that are left over from foiling bigger images or stamps or sentiments. doesn't take much to add some really awesome effects. So this piece is pretty much done. Bring in another piece of the gold here. I'm hesitating because I think it's still too wet and I'm getting a little nervous about it. So I'm just going to leave that. And I think that one's a little wet too. So you know what? Let's just set those off to the side. We'll build these two cards first. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take my Lawn Fawn liquid glue. Get this on the back of the Yupo paper. And we're going to stick this down onto our coordinating cardstock. So I'll do the black first. So bring those pieces back. And again, we're just going to layer these so we get a nice even margin around. Ooh, lots of glue seeping out there. That's okay. This Lawn Fawn liquid glue, I'm sure you guys have heard me say this many times, but it bears repeating. It's fantastic because it dries clear. So a really great adhesive to have handy. So I think I might make this a landscape card because the sentiment we're using is a little big, and I'm just going to cut this banner so that it's straight and we can put it flush against the alcohol ink panel. Normally I would do that in my paper trimmer, and I didn't get it quite straight, but there we go. That will work. Okay, so you're going to put your adhesive on the back of your sentiment strip and put that down on your card front, and you can bring in your T-ruler to make sure that is straight. There we go. Great, so that's set up. We've got our second card, got the black panel here. Get that nice margin all the way around. Fantastic. And we've got this great sentiment. Look at you being awesome, which I love. So again, we're going to cut that just so that we can have it flush up against the side of our alcohol ink panel. And I want to put this in a spot where I'm not covering up too much of that gold, because I think that's what adds a lot of interest to the background here. So actually I can see that I did not cut that edge straight at all. So there is value in using your paper trimmer to do that. So look at you being awesome. And let's make sure that's straight. Perfect. Okay, so let's go back to these other backgrounds because I can see we've got that tackiness happening. So I'm going to go in here with the silver, and look at that, picking that up right away. Awesome. Fantastic. So that's the end of our silver, and we're going to go into this section here with the gold, and we're going to be able to get these last two cards all set to go. All right, so now for these last two, I'm going to bring in this beigey gray cardstock. Get some glue on the back of our panels. And when you guys see all of these next to each other, I should do a poll or something online to see if people can guess which colors were used or how many colors were used. Because I know if I was guessing, there is no way I would guess only 3 colors were used, or for heaven's sake, that the same 3 colors were used for all of these projects. And they're all so different. A great way to mass produce cards, especially if you want to mass produce a lot of birthday cards or thank you cards. Tailored Expressions has the sentiment strips for all of those types of categories. So, you know, you can stamp those out in mass production, and then you are good to go. You've got all of your sentiments ready, and you can mass produce these backgrounds and you're all set. So again, no real rhyme or reason to where I'm putting the sentiment. I just want to have the foil show as much as possible where we can. So just dab up a little bit of excess glue there. All right, that's good. And we have our last one. Next time I will get out my paper trimmer and trim those flags off so that I'm not struggling with getting it straight, but this worked just fine. Great. Okay, so last step is we need to grab our card bases. Card bases that I'm using are the Nina Solar White Classic Crest 110 pound weight cardstock. So nice heavyweight card bases. We'll get our glue. Actually, I'm sorry, I think on the supply sheet, and as I've been talking today, I've been calling this the Lawn Fawn liquid glue, but I actually ran out of Lawn Fawn liquid glue, so I moved on to Gina K Connect, which is very similar, and it also dries clear. So it is another great adhesive to have in your collection. So I'm getting that straight and pressing down to make sure we've got that looking great on our panel. Make sure we're right side up. Always crafting problems when you glue your card front down and all of a sudden realize, shoot, it is upside down. And then you frantically, cut around your panel, or maybe that's just me. I don't know. Leave a message in the comments if that's happened to you, so we can all feel less alone in our card making problems. All right, let's get these last couple all set on our card fronts. I just think these look fantastic. And again, if you're not aware, International Women's Day is coming up March 8th. So that's what I am using these cards for. And I'm really excited to be able to have some mass-produced cards for this. Now, just give me 1 second, because the only card bases that I had ready were portrait, and I need one landscape for this last card. So just had to reach a little further for that one. So let's get our last card base ready. And that looks awesome. Now, if you wanted, you could bling these cards up. You could add in some gems or sequins. I am not going to. I think they look great as they are. I absolutely love the shine that you get from adding the foil. And there we have 4 finished cards, all custom created background using 3 different alcohol inks. And again, we used crimson, aquamarine, and sepia. And, you know, as you're using alcohol inks, you are going to get a little inky. That's okay. We're crafters. We can handle it. To get the ink off your hands, you can actually just use hand sanitizer. I know we all have that handy. So you can use hand sanitizer. It will very likely take it off, or you can use rubbing alcohol as well. So here are the 4 cards. Here's the list of supplies that we used. I really hope this inspired you to try alcohol inks. I know this video was a little bit longer, and you probably had to, you know, listen to me talk a little bit more as we were moving around the alcohol inks, but they really are so much fun to play with. And you can see just using 3 colors, how much variation you can get. Try adding the foil into the tacky bits. I think it adds an awesome element to these cards. So I really hope you'll give this a try. Please let us know in the comments. We really appreciate you stopping by and watching this video. So please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up. Take care, and we will see you next time.